How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Playmaker's View. I'm your host, Jamie Radish. Hope you're all doing well out there, staying happy, staying healthy. Today's episode is going to be a great one. I got Antonio Williams joining me. We're going to get into more about Antonio, but he really is a jack of all trades. Does a lot around the sports world, really dedicated to basketball. My favorite thing about him is he's been a Phoenix Suns scout, which is awesome and something I could maybe see myself doing someday. But like I said, we're going to get more into him. You guys are going to learn about his past experience, what he's done throughout the years, and just about his passion for basketball and the sports world as a whole. So I hope you guys learn a lot from him. Feel free to reach out to him, connect with him. He loves talking the game and all that good stuff. So hope you guys enjoy this episode, and we'll get things going. All right, guys. So like I said, I have Antonio Williams joining me on the podcast. Thank you, Antonio. Before we get started, I want you to kind of give the viewers a brief overview of yourself and kind of what you do on the daily and what your past experience have been.
First off, I'd like to say I appreciate you having me on. Thank you for sharing the platform with me. These are always great, and I love to continue to build the fellowship around sports. And so, to give a little bit of a background about myself, I have worked in the sports industry for, geez, almost 20 years now. Uh, and I've done a lot of things. I've been fortunate enough to work in the NBA league office. I also worked in scouting and baseball operations for the Boston Red Sox. And so then after that, I worked in for ESPN and basketball as a writer slash scout slash analyst. Did that. Worked in NBA scouting for the actual league as well. I also worked in basketball sports marketing for Nike, and that entailed lots of things in terms of negotiated deals with some of the basketball programs that are on the high major level in college basketball. That was again negotiating those deals or going through with if they were going through a new uniform design, doing those things, all sorts of things that was involved in that job. And I loved it, learned a lot about the business of sports. And then from there, I actually led a basketball division for a major financial management company. And then I also worked in scouting and player personnel for the Phoenix Suns. So I've been around the block, done a lot of things, also played basketball as well. And now I'm doing some sports content and doing some sports analysis as well, trying to offer my perspective, given that I've worked in a bunch of different areas that are involved in the business of sports, as well as being a player. So offering my perspective and spending time with people like you has just been great. So
Yeah, I love that because the whole point of this podcast is to kind of get those stories out. And your experience, in my opinion, you've done so many things. You're a jack of all trades. So, how did you get into
yeah,
these
thank you.
things? Yeah, for sure. So, how you obviously went to college. What did you study? How did you did you just know someone, or how did you get into that whole business of being a scout and all that stuff?
Well, I studied economics and American studies when I was in college, and I thought I wanted to work in investment banking. And so I actually shadowed a group that I was going to work with, and I shadowed them for a couple of days and figured out quickly that this isn't for me. And all of my internships were in sports and entertainment. And it took me a while to figure out that's what I was passionate about. But I decided to sort of throw caution in the wind and just pursue the things that I was really passionate about after I shadowed the group and figured out that role wasn't for me. And so after that, I was fortunate enough to I applied for a program in the NBA called the Associates Program, where they would take recent college grads. And at that time, it was when you applied for the Associates Program, if you made it to the interview portion, you were fortunate enough to interview with a bunch of different groups, and you can kind of decide if offers were given to you or if an offer came your way. You could sort of decide which group you wanted to work with. And I was fortunate enough to, again, make it to the in person interview portion of the associates program. And I worked in WNBA basketball operations, and I spent a little bit of time doing work as well in NBA basketball operations around All Star, et cetera.
Right.
And so it was great again because I learned the business side of sports because one of the things that the NBA is actually one of the most successful marketing companies in the world. It's just wrapped in basketball.
Right.
So I learned a lot about the business of sports while I was there. And again, I applied for that program online. I was one of the few applicants that actually made it through as an online applicant. And so it was awesome. It was great. It was the grace of God that sort of helped me to get on my path. And then from there, again, I went to school at Brandeis University and played there. It's in Boston. I see you have a lot of St. Louis paraphernalia on the wall. So
Yeah.
Washington was in the league that I played in.
Okay. Yeah.
So yes. So it's so there, and then went back to Boston after I left the league office to go work in baseball operations and scouting for the Red Sox.
Mhm.
And a lady by the name of Meg Valancourt, who I'm so grateful and so thankful for, actually facilitated that opportunity because I actually interviewed for a position with the Patriots with her, and she said to me, "Well, I really want to hire you here, but you should take the job in NBA because there's something that's down the pipe, and we'll continue to stay in touch." And then one day she emailed me from a Boston Red Sox account while I was in the NBA and said, "Hey, I'm here. This is why I wanted to continue that conversation." So
Yeah.
shout out to Meg because she's incredible. And that's how I got to the Red Sox. And, we went on a great run. Of course, we won the World Series in '04 against the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Right. But, so for me, I could say this, that experience was crazy for me as well, because even though I grew up in California and went to high school in Southern California, I actually was born in St. Louis. And
Oh,
so I
really?
went back to St. Louis for the summers and played baseball in the summers in St. Louis.
Okay.
So the Cardinals were one of the first teams that I actually grew up rooting for. So it was really surreal for me to be playing the Cardinals and also playing the last games in the old Busch Stadium,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And during games 3 and 4 in the World Series. So it was an amazing run. And so that's kind of how I got on my role. And,
Mhm.
there were a lot of things that I applied for that I didn't get. But I tried to remain steadfast to the mission. Lots of cold calling, lots of cold emailing, lots of days figuring out email addresses for general managers, assistant general managers, etc. And I was fortunate enough that some actually responded. Shout out to the ones that did. Mitch Kupchak is one. The GM of the Charlotte Hornets, used to be longtime GM of the Los Angeles Lakers. So he was one that was really gracious enough to respond to this young guy that was wet behind the ears, didn't know anyone, and was just trying to get into the industry.
Yeah.
So, so that's kind of how my path was sort of built, and I just followed it. And I was because of this industry and because of how closed the industry can be. I also was open to the whatever opportunity was presented. And what it did was it afforded me an opportunity to get experience and gain expertise in a bunch of different areas in sports.
Mhm.
So that's kind of how I really navigated my career and you know went about on my mission.
Yeah. Well, there's two things from that. One is, I think a good lesson from your experience is just to, I mean, you said you were just rapidly sending emails. I think it's important. A lot of times people are too afraid to reach out, but I mean, if you keep trying, eventually one will come. Don't you agree with that?
I do. I certainly agree with that. And you have to, be cognizant of the fact that people are busy, for
Right.
sure. And then also too, if they don't respond, or if they respond and say, "Hey, we don't have anything right now," it's an opportunity to stay in touch. even if they tell you that they don't have anything and you get a personal email from someone or a personal call from someone, you now have their contact information.
Mhm.
So at that point, you just continue to reach out and every once in a while say, hey, just reaching out. And one of the things that I did as well to really get started on my path is I actually went to, when I was living in Boston, I went to a Boston College basketball game and I did a report on a particular player there. And I sent that report to every NBA team. I sent it to media outlets. I sent it to everybody.
Mhm.
And so once I sent that report, once I got a response from whether it was a media outlet, whether it was a team official, whether it was a league official, that was a win for me.
Right.
And the other thing it did was, I know we all have to make sure that we remain cognizant of our value. You have to do that. You have to know your worth. But part of knowing your worth as well is sometimes you have to give what I call game for free, right? You have to give a little information to someone that, say, when I was doing my report on players, I was sending reports on players also that I thought were under the radar players.
Mhm.
So players that an organization or a media outlet can say, wow, that's a good player that maybe we don't have a huge or developed file on.
Mhm.
So that's game for free. Hey, I'm giving you this information for free. In exchange for that, I need a connection or maybe an opportunity to show that I can continue to produce this high quality of work. So
Mhm.
sometimes it's almost, when you're in the athletic apparel world, we call it seeding product. So if you have a person that's a high profile person, sometimes you may give them a free pair of shoes or a free apparel item of apparel, because what you're doing is you're utilizing, leveraging their platform to evangelize about your product.
Right.
So game for free is also part of it. You just have to pick and choose how you're going to do it and when you're going to do it. So that was also part of my mission as well.
Mhm. Is there anyone in specific throughout your scouting days that maybe is in the league or someone that really kind of helped you exceed in your career?
Yeah, there are a few people. Again, Mitch Kupchak was one where he was really receptive when I was young and trying to get into the business. And even before I had any sort of experience on my resume besides internships, he responded to me when I worked for the Lake and when he worked for the Lakers. He actually, and I live in Dallas now, so Mark Cuban was another one. That actually responded to an email that I sent to him, and he wanted me to connect with people in their video room, and I actually, when I was graduating from college, I actually just inquired too late for a position because they had already filled that position in the video room with someone else. He was one that was also very responsive to me. There have been a host of scouts and owners or assistant GMs or people that when I reached out to them, they were scouts and then they rose to the level of being a GM or assistant GM. Another scout that's now with the Hornets, a guy by the name of Gary Sachs, also, when he was with the Clippers, responded to me and really helped me to kind of shape my message to other front office personnel. Dell Demps, who used to be the GM of the New Orleans Pelicans, David Booth, who was the assistant GM of the New Orleans Pelicans. Those guys were very influential and helping me grow. Adam Filippi, who was with the Lakers, who is now with the Sacramento Kings, also helped me a lot. Irving Thomas with the Los Angeles Lakers helped me a lot. So these Rodre Jackson, who was actually my friend when I was in the NBA working as an associate, and he was the assistant GM for the LA Sparks at the time. And he also went on to work as a director of player development for the Lakers. He was also very influential and instrumental in my growth in this industry. So lots of people that I have to thank that are on the team level for sure
Yeah.
that helped me a lot.
Yeah, so many. It seems like you have a lot of mentors and role models, which is awesome. That's something. I mean, it's all about connections. I think in the world now,
Right.
It's just you got to have those people to reach out to and help you build. I want to move on to, so can you explain you have the A. Williams you're a founder of the A. Williams Basketball Foundation. Can
Yeah,
you explain
yes,
a little bit?
yes. Yeah, so I am on IG, Facebook, Twitter, etc. I'm the Sports Connect, A. Williams Basketball, and what I'm doing there is again offering my analysis that is shaped by my experience as a player, shaped by when I was talking about the Last Dance. I talked about my perspective as a guy that was not only influenced by Michael Jordan as a player. I wore number 23, right? So talking about how as a adopter as a sneakerhead, because if you bought the Jordan 1s, you were sort of adopted into the sneakerhead culture before it was this sort of mainstream movement. Talking about that, talking about my experience in basketball sports marketing at Nike, talking about how certain things would shape my view and the things that I thought based on being a member in the media, working as a scout and scouting players, using all of my experiences to sort of offer a unique perspective on the things that we have going on in sports. And also, too, I also wear the similar hat that you're wearing now. I wear that when people actually come on my show and I interview them about
Mhm.
their experiences. I did a couple of weeks ago, and we just actually ran it again because we were being sensitive to the events that are going on in our country right now. I did a piece with a producer and an assistant coach, who was the assistant coach for the Women of Troy, the USC team that has Cheryl Miller, Cynthia Cooper, etc. Um, and Coach Fred Williams is now an assistant coach for the Los Angeles Sparks, and he's a longtime head coach in the WNBA as well. So with him and one of the producers of that magnificent project called the Women of Troy, Branson Wright, and we talked about some of those things that sort of resonated with me while I watched this incredible documentary. So I also just this past week had a person on, Travis Singleton. My man is the sneaker reporter, and he has sort of brought his love of being of sneaker culture as well as his love for basketball. He was covering the Oklahoma City Thunder. He's a Bostonian, and so we were talking about his experience there covering the NBA as well as being a sneakerhead. So so I also have people on and I ask them questions about their journey. And I love to have you on and interview you. We can sort of flip roles, and I want to interview you and talk about your journey and some of the things that you want to accomplish in the industry. So that's what I'm doing there. It's great. It's awesome to really have that platform and continue to connect with people and share some of my views and hear their views. And so, as well as continue to try to entertain and educate the audience, I'm also learning as well. So it's been great.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I really appreciate you coming on, and I will definitely be honored to interview with you on your show. But I mean,
Appreciate that.
the platform you have is incredible to me. I love the whole idea of learning from other people and being able to, just use their experience for your own experience, because
Right.
at the end of the day, you have people around you to be able to build and grow for yourself, and I think that's super important. I mean, you're a jack of all trades, like I said earlier, and it's just incredible that you've done so many things, and now you're even onto something new. Like, you're still growing, so I think it's awesome. And
For sure.
I wanted to ask you one thing before we kind of wrap things up. Is there one thing for people, not just going into the sports industry, but just trying to find a career path? Is there something as you were growing up that you really stayed true to and tried to, commit yourself to, say, I'm going to work hard every day? Or is there some sort of tip that you have for yourself and that others can use in their daily life?
Yes, I mean there are a lot. So for me, I would say be persistent.
Okay.
Continue to be persistent, and go after the things that you're really passionate about. And that was one of the things that really worked as a compass for me throughout my career. And when you are being persistent and pursuing those things that you're really passionate about, there will be some ups and downs, there will be ebbs and flows, but you have to stay persistent. If you're persistent and you're consistent, it will work out in your favor. And that was the biggest sort of testimony that I can offer. And testimony for me, and sort of a thing that affirmed my belief, is when I got to New York and worked in the league office, a lot of my classmates that were also in economics when I was at Brandeis University in Boston, when I finished up there, a lot of them went on to work in the financial world as I was sort of preparing myself to go to the financial world. And they went, and after, when we were there in New York for a couple of months, when we would hang out, they would all say to me, geez, I'm so proud of the fact that you actually pursue something that you're really passionate about. Because some of them that went into that career actually weren't as passionate about it. You know, they were, I guess, basically chasing the money, right? And so, if, especially when you're young and when your responsibility, you only have a responsibility to you and your development, it's imperative that you continue to stay on your path and stay committed to you. And because you don't have to worry about other things, you don't have to worry about a household that you're supporting, etc. You always stay consistent and stay persistent in your walk and your journey and the things that you're passionate about, and you deal with those ebbs and flows. And for all of those people that tell you no, you just continue to have that thick skin, and you continue to persist and overcome those temporary shortfalls, and you stay true to your mission. You keep going, and it'll eventually work out, for sure. Especially if you're doing that and you are leading, you're allowing your moral compass to guide you as well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I think, like you said, you gotta do. A lot of people in today's world, I think it's all about the money, and a lot of times
Right.
people just, when you, like you said, when you're young, you're, I guess, appealed to that money. But I personally, I want to do something in sports because I've grown up wanting to be around the sports world, and I think that's gonna make me
Yes.
happy. I don't know where it's gonna lead me. Like you said, you've done so many things, so whether it be podcasting the rest of my life or being a scout or whatever. But I think, I mean, you've really helped me already in the 20 minutes or whatever it's been, just to
Oh, thank you.
motivate me. Yeah, so I really
Yeah.
do appreciate that. We can kind of wrap things up if there's any final thoughts that you have just for people in general, or maybe an experience that you've had that you really have been grateful for or appreciate in your life. Just
I've No, I've been thankful for all of those experiences that I've had, because I've learned a lot from all of them. And even when you're going through them, there are there are lots of success. Of course, you have lots of moments where there's a success, and then you have moments where it didn't work out the way that I wanted it to work out. But nonetheless, throughout all of those things, you're learning, and you're learning different aspects of the industry. You're learning about yourself, and you're learning exactly what you're interested in, what you're not interested in, things that you want to do, things that you may not want to pursue. So I would say, no matter what the opportunity is, you take it as a learning experience, and always stay committed to your mission of making sure that you are putting yourself in the best in the best situation possible to attain the success that you're trying to attain. So I would say, continue to stay true to your mission. Don't let anybody tell you no. If there, once the no comes, that's just pointing you in another direction.
mhm.
So take it that way. And that's exactly how I took it. And even when, you reach out to someone and they actually respond and they say, hey, maybe you're too early for this particular opportunity, or check back with me in a couple of weeks, or check back with me in a couple of months. That's a connection. That's a win for you.
Right.
And so take it as such. And I would say that, and just continue to keep creating great content, keep doing what you're doing, be open to those opportunities that present themselves, and everything will work out for you, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, even though it's a low, it's always a high. I think because I mean
Right.
sometimes things aren't going to go your way like you said, but it always leads to another path. There's a lot of paths in our world, in our life. So I think that's awesome. And like I said, I do appreciate you coming on. Hopefully, maybe even have you on again sometime in the near future. Basketball's come back, so maybe we can
Yeah,
sit down and talk about basketball in the near future.
let's
There's a
let's
lot going
do it.
on there. But yeah, so
Let's do it.
like I
And
said,
and I want to talk to you as well about being your St. Louis fandom as well. We need to
yeah,
talk about that because it's I think from a nationwide perspective, I don't think people, other than the Cardinals, I don't think people really appreciate the sports fandom in St. Louis,
yeah.
and it's a great sports city.
It's crazy. I mean, we had that parade for the Blues, and people, I mean, don't even realize. It's just, I'm grateful for living in St. Louis because I've had an amazing sports experience, and I haven't even
Yes,
been. I mean, I'm still young, I'm 20 years old, so I mean, it's incredible, like you said, and I think definitely people need to have more awareness of our sports fandom, like you said, here in St. Louis. But
for
yeah,
sure.
so that's pretty much it. Gonna do it for this episode. I want to thank you again, Antonio. I'll
Thank
link
you.
your social media and all that stuff below, so you can gain some followers and keep
Appreciate it.
moving on and all that stuff. But like I said, I'll have you on again. So thank you guys for joining me today. This was a Playmaker's View with Antonio Williams, and we'll be back with you guys next week on a Playmaker's View.